Everyone, welcome back to Utility Sports, and we've got our Week 12 pick'em and predictions. And this week, there's a lot of really great games, especially as we get closer to the postseason. Each week becomes more and more meaningful. If you guys are excited for this week of NFL games, make sure to leave a like and also subscribe to the channel for more content like what you see in this video. Let's get into it now, Austin, with our pick'em records. And another bad week from me, guys. You guys are getting used to seeing this. I am falling behind in the pick'em records, even worse than I did last year. Austin's got a 10-game clearance on me at this point. Austin getting more comfortable, almost like the lead we saw the Cowboys have over the Vikings, except this one probably even a little bit more out of hand at this point. Austin, congratulations up to this point running pick'em. No surprise here for our viewers or myself, obviously. Now let's get into it. Let's dig myself an even deeper hole now with Thanksgiving football. You know, I'm going to be hurting the scale, eating too much food on Thanksgiving and digging myself a hole and pick them even more. But at this point, at least I can't fall further back with this game. Bills over Lions. You and I both take Buffalo here against the Thanksgiving Detroit Lions, the team that plays so consistently on Thanksgiving, and not really their performance, but consistently they are scheduled for Thanksgiving games. That's what we see from the Detroit Lions, who, hey, they're on a little bit of a run right now. They've been playing some pretty good football, Austin, but the Bills, I think, just clearly a better team on paper. And, you know, Josh Allen versus Jared Goff, I don't think a lot of people are signing up for the Goff experience. Austin, what do you like about Buffalo in this one?
Yeah, I mean, obviously the Buffalo Bills, a lot of people felt were the best team in the NFL, especially after their victory against the Chiefs. But when you look at the Detroit Lions, they do present an interesting challenge, winning 3 out of their last 3 games, 2 of which against NFC North opponents and 1 against the New York Giants, who have been a competent football team. So a lot of credit to Detroit. They're 3-0 since trading away TJ Hawkinson. And now moving forward here, they present a bigger challenge to teams than people realize. And when you look at the Detroit Lions, a lot of it is predicated on running the football and setting up that play action for guys like Amon-Ra St. Brown. And I think that's a nice combination that they have, starting to finally put it together a little bit. Defensively, they've been a little bit better. So that's a good sign for them. But I still think Buffalo is going to overmatch them, especially with, you know, how good that offense still is.
At the time we're recording this, Jamal Williams is the NFL touchdown leader, just like we all expected, right, Austin? Let's get into our next game here now. Still can't believe that, but Thanksgiving football, we're staying in that NFC East. We've got some teams here. The New York Giants head into Dallas, who Dallas has such a good showing in Week 11. Austin, last week in Pick'em, you previewed how the pass rush was going to be a vital tool for Dallas, slowing down Kirk Cousins and the Vikings. And boy, they must have heard you, because they showed out on all levels. Started off that game, Micah Parsons, 3rd snap of the game, strip sack, kind of set up the whole tone for it. And they never really stopped relenting at the quarterback. Austin, here, we both went with the Cowboys at home. They've just been kind of hitting their stride at the right time. Giants maybe taking a slight step back. I want to get your perspective on one other thing here. Odell Beckham Jr., does he end up signing with one of these two teams in addition to how this game goes?
I think he actually ends up signing with the Dallas Cowboys. Definitely was giving them some high praise on Twitter here recently, especially after watching that Vikings Cowboys game. He was very, very impressed. You know, when you look at this game individually, Dallas had a great showing against one of the better teams in the NFC with the Minnesota Vikings. They were showing it on all 3 levels, you know, special teams, defense, offense, all those different areas of the game they were affecting. And you look at Brett Maher had a huge day. The defense came up clutch, you know, multiple sacks, really giving the Vikings no time to throw. And they were also running the ball effectively. And, you know, they were opportunistic throwing the football. So overall, dominated that game. A little concern for me with the Giants. Their receiving core gets a little bit thinner. Potentially Wan'Dale Robinson very well could have torn his ACL. We don't know yet, you know, at the time of recording, but it is high speculation that he very well could miss the remainder of the season.
Definitely a big blow for them. He had a great game before that injury, of course, was putting up some career numbers for himself, but now the Giants are going to have to look to do it without him. And against Dallas, who's been kind of clicking on all cylinders lately, minus 1/2 of football against Green Bay, and even 1/4 of football against Green Bay. They've been playing really well, and that 1-2 running back attack's been nice for them as well. Getting into our 3rd Thursday game here now, and it's the Minnesota Vikings we just got done talking about. I think one big question for them, Christian Darrisaw, he's in concussion protocol at this point. And Austin, that maybe lends itself to why you're picking New England. Of course, Matt Judon's been so good this year. Is that kind of why you like New England in this one?
Yeah, I think, you know, Bill Belichick is going to throw a lot of different looks at Kirk Cousins. I think the Vikings might be a little deflated after this one. Maybe they bounce back in a big way and have a great game. However, I have my concerns once again about the offensive line. When you look at the Christian Darrisaw injury, it's pretty vital. It's pretty vital in terms of how this offense operates. You look at this offense, it's pretty much fully predicated on offensive plays developing fully and the route trees being able to be ran entirely in order to generate those big plays. You don't see a lot of underneath stuff explode. They just aren't that kind of offense. But at the end of the day, I think that is going to be pretty tough. You're going to see a lot of man coverage against the Patriots, and they're going to line up mano a mano and try to take your biggest weapons away and honestly send a little bit of different looks and pressure. So I think that's why New England might have the edge here, despite them being on the road. I look at this Patriot team as a team that's actually looking slightly dangerous.
As a Jets fan, I can attest to that. Zach Wilson, Austin. You and I talk all the time off camera about how important that draft was. Trevor Lawrence versus Zach Wilson. Someone send help for me, please. Zach Wilson, 9 completions today. We had 10 punts. It's a disaster. Okay, the Patriots showed out, but I'm thinking the Vikings won't play as bad as they did this week again. I'm betting on the team that just got obliterated here. I think that they can go out, show out, and I hope that they can win a close one here. They're at home, no travel for them again. Obviously didn't help them much against Dallas, but here against New England, maybe it's a different story, and that's what I'm banking on here. A little bit of a comeback revenge story. Sunday slate now, we get into some more games. Of course, 3 of them on Thursday. No bye weeks this week, though, so we still have 13 big-time games coming up in Sunday and Monday. So Denver Broncos heading to Carolina here. Austin, you're going with probably the consensus pick by most people, the team that's just flat out better, the Denver Broncos. Up and down the roster, I would say they're just a more talented team, especially after some of the moves Carolina's made. But I'm going with the Panthers here because Steve Wilkes, first of all, he's coaching for his job. A lot of these players are playing for their jobs. And I have seen a little bit of a momentum change for them. Now, I didn't mean it was a win for them this past week, but what I see from them is they're going to go out and perform. They're going to work harder. And I think at home here, that gives them an advantage in this game, whereas Denver's been a little inconsistent up and down this year. Austin, why do you like the Broncos, though?
Oh, I don't like the Broncos, but I just think that when you look at this game, it's a tough one to pick because you are looking at the Carolina Panthers at home, which they stunned Tampa earlier when they were playing at home. Denver in this situation where they have a good defense, they really do, one of the top tier defenses in the NFL. However, their offense has been atrocious. They've had injuries. They've had a lot of different things working against them. And honestly, I don't love picking this game. But Carolina against Baltimore looked very, very competitive. And that's the key word, competitive. No, they didn't win, but they were definitely in that game for a long period of time. Denver ends up losing to Vegas, which once again, bites you because you just can't seem to get these Raiders ones right. Unfortunately, they're very tough to peg at this point in the season. But I'm with you. I think that Denver is the better team on paper per se, but Steve Wilkes coaching for his job, coaching for another opportunity is maybe a good motivating factor here.
Let's get into the next game right away. Now we're going to look at a matchup here between the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and the Cleveland Browns. And Browns football, been a little up and down this year. Obviously, Deshaun Watson getting closer and closer to his return to being the QB1 now for the first time ever for the Cleveland Browns. Definitely will be an interesting story to monitor, but Tampa Bay right now, they stand in their way this week. And I think that Tampa Bay is just going to, at some point here, start to piece some things together and just gut out some games. They have enough talent to do that. And I trust Tom Brady enough to get that done. He's been such a talented player for his entire career. He's won so many games. I just don't see that stopping all of a sudden this year. I know he's been a little up and down. Since the divorce, though, he's been kind of playing money football, and I think he's going to continue to play money football here. Austin, why do you like the Bucs in this one?
The Bucs still have a stingy run defense in terms of when you look at the personnel group. They have a chance against Cleveland because they'll be able to kind of stifle the run a little bit. And once again, you're going to have to rely on a guy like Jacoby Brissett really, taking the reins at that quarterback position and making good throws. Now he's done pretty well so far this year, but once again, I trust Tampa Bay. I trust the running game that they're going to present actually against Cleveland. And I just think they're, flat out the better football team, despite them being on the road late in the year. It's tough sometimes to win those road games after you're all banged up, but Tampa Bay, they definitely have the talent to do so.
Like you're saying with that run defense, it's going to be important for those linebackers to get downhill and not let Nick Chubb break tackles. He's been so great at that this year. If you can get him down on first contact and maybe gang tackle, that's going to be a really important factor for Tampa in this one. Let's get into our next game now. We look at a matchup here in between the Baltimore Ravens and the Jacksonville Jaguars. Austin, I'm waving that white flag. I'm done picking the Jaguars this year. I'm going with Baltimore. You've been telling me all year that's the right thing to do. Jaguars fans, I'm sorry. Okay, I wanted to keep riding with you guys. I'm a big Trevor Lawrence believer. He's better than Zach Wilson, as indicated by Austin's pre-draft board a few years ago. But at this point, Austin, Ravens here, they're the right pick. Even heading into Jacksonville, where there's 129 violations, including dead rodents in some of the kitchen areas, which is not a great sign for that organization.
No, it just speaks to what I've thought about this team all along. They got overrated after a nice quick start. However, this team just sucks. I'm going to be honest. They just are terrible. Anyway, looking at Baltimore, definitely a team that's going to wear out Jacksonville. Jacksonville's strength on defense is, defending against the run. I don't really think it matters, quite honestly. Their offense just, has to piece it together. They had a decent game plan, against Kansas City offensively, but once again, they lose in, Jacksonville fashion. So I didn't even, think about this more than once. It was an easy typing that Ravens up in my pick selection.
For those angry Jaguars fans typing comments right now, please stop. He's a Jaguars fan himself, so he has clearance to say these things on videos like this one. Let's get into the next one now. We look at a matchup between the Houston Texans and Miami Dolphins. And hey, the Texans have been playing some really competitive football. Not a lot of winning has happened for them, but they've been very competitive, which I think is a good sign for maybe what's to come for this team. But that's for the future, right? Miami kind of right now in the present, they've been running things in the AFC East, which has been really, really competitive. All four teams in the AFC East, are 2 games above 500. Very tough division to win. And it looks like Miami right now is slated to potentially do so if they take care of business down the stretch. This is a key game for them, Austin. Why are the Dolphins going to win this one?
And I think this is strength on strength here, which is kind of interesting when you look at the Miami Dolphins offense versus the Houston Texans pass defense. And, once again, they have the playmakers in Miami to absolutely, break open a game. But Houston defensively, especially, against the passing attack, they've been super, super stingy, which is, kind of a direct result of drafting one of the better corners in the entire NFL and Derek Stingley. And I say that confidently because when you watch him on tape, this guy is an absolute game changer. And once again, he has kind of transformed the secondary a little bit. Jalen Petrie, another big time player that we had talked about in the pre-draft process. Those two guys, huge impact players, and have made all the difference in the world in this secondary.
Here, Austin, do you hear that? Oh, that's all the Stingley pre-draft haters. We can't hear him right now because they're not saying anything because he's been phenomenal this entire year. It's going to be a fun game to watch. I do still like Miami's overall talent, but you really previewed one of the greatest points of this game and something that's going to be really fun to watch. Going into our next one now, we look at a matchup here between the Chicago Bears and the New York Jets. And talking about good rookie cornerbacks, Sauce Gardner's been so great this year. And I can confidently say at this point, Robert Saleh has done what he's been intended to do. I wasn't super in love with the hiring of him, just looking at what he had accomplished in San Francisco. Obviously, the track record's there, but you're also saying, hey, look at the pass rush he had and all the talent he had on that defense. He's getting that defensive level from the New York Jets on somewhat of a consistent basis now. And I think one of the players who's really been benefited by him, Quinnen Williams, he's come out of his shell and finally looks like the player a lot of people expected him to become, which is a really, really good sign. And Austin, I'm not the biggest Quinnen Williams guy. So for me saying this, it really does mean that he has taken a massive step forward this year. This Jets defense is really good. Zach Wilson, yes, you did let the team down. I don't know how you can complete the ball 9 times on like 22 attempts and miss like 3 throws to the flat like you usually do every game and then say, no, I'm still QB1 here. I'm going to say it. Play Joe Flacco. I can't. And Austin knows how bad this is. I can't stand Joe Flacco. Please play Joe Flacco. We have a better shot at winning. We're actually in a playoff race for the first time in a decade. Play Joe Flacco. I can't believe I'm saying that in the year 2022. My blood is boiling. Austin, why are the Jets going to win this game against the Bears? And is it just bad quarterback play versus bad quarterback play? Or are you kind of buying into some of the Justin Fields stuff he's done lately?
Well, and the thing is with the New York Jets, I look at this defense as, super stingy. I mean, you look across the board, there's a ton of talent. You had highlighted earlier with Quinnen Williams, Sauce Gardner, CJ Mosley. This is a really good collection of talent defensively, and they play well together. Now, you look at what they were able to do against New England's offense. I mean, they absolutely stifled them. Once again, I think that part of the reason I picked them is A, they're at home, but also B, Justin Fields, injury definitely plays a factor in this one. If he's not able to go, this is an automatic lock to beat the Jets, in my opinion. But even with him playing, I think the Jets have a pretty good chance. Zach Wilson's got to step up because he's got Mike White and Joe Flacco, kind of waiting behind him. Robert Saleh did not confirm or deny for sure what was going to be the plan moving forward. But I mean, he keeps saying Zach's our guy. I don't know if I buy into it.
Jets fans, let me know in the comment section, who's the better quarterback, Sam Darnold or Zach Wilson? Can't believe we're having this discussion, but we are. Let's get into the next game here now. Jets fans, I'm sorry. I'm 1-2. It's terrible. Cincinnati Bengals, they head into Tennessee to take on the Titans in Austin. It's like really hard to not pick the Titans here at home, but we both went with Cincinnati. I think you and I both probably really thought about this game. This was one of the toughest games of the week to pick for me because I just like Cincinnati a little bit more on paper. I kind of like their offensive flow, but Tennessee's been playing really well. Obviously, their offensive coordinator getting a DUI after his best game of the season against the Packers. Not a good look for that team. Does that kind of bake itself into why you went with Cincinnati here as well?
I think it does just a little bit, but when I look at these two teams, I've been picking Tennessee pretty consistently in almost all of the pick'ems so far this year. I like this roster. I like what they have to show for it. I love the front seven that they have to offer. Offensively, I think there are some limitations in the pass game, which is where I think Cincinnati can, definitely exploit that a little bit. But Cincinnati's going to have to be really, really stout, against the run. Derrick Henry is going to be a huge problem for this team. However, even on the road, I think the Bengals could sneak one out here. Was leaning Titans initially, but after thinking about it, I am just such a big fan of the Bengals. I love, what they have to offer. I just think there's going to be some opportunistic turnovers here for the Bengals.
Definitely will be a very good, close, competitive game. And the AFC right now, the way it's shaken out, there's a lot of tough competition in terms of who's going to make the playoffs, who's going to be a wild card team. Games like this really do end up shaping what we see in the postseason later on. So this is going to be one of those must-watch games this week for you just tuning in across the NFL. Going into our next game now, we look at a matchup between the Atlanta Falcons and the Washington Commanders. And don't look now, but Washington's kind of getting hot. They started the year 1-4. Now at this point, they're up to 6-5. This team has been playing really well, specifically under Taylor Heineke, someone you and I have both historically believed in more than anyone else. Not that he's a franchise quarterback, but that he's a serviceable spot starter. And that's what he's really been for them. He's been, without him on that roster, who knows where this team would be right now in the absence of Carson Wentz. They've been playing some really good football with him. Obviously, they dripped him out in the chains, kind of stole the Vikings mojo. Austin, what do you think of Washington up to this point? Kind of what do you take from them in terms of where they're at and where they're going to be?
I think they're kind of capturing a little bit of lightning in the bottle with Taylor Heineke, because with him as the full-time starter, it was not going super well, previously, but, this year it's a little different. You definitely feel a different sense of mojo. And I think with them, piling wins on top of each other, that's why I kind of went here again. I'm like, man, they are feeling themselves. I think it's very possible that they, get this win against Atlanta. They're the home team. Once again, Atlanta, they had a nice game against Chicago, pulled out that game narrowly. But once again, I do have some concerns of, about the Atlanta pass defense. And I think that's where Washington could win with Terry McLaurin and Jahan Dotson. Those two guys are absolute studs. And Taylor Heineke has been working very, very well with this receiving group.
The Commanders been playing well, and don't look now, but Chase Young, he's slated to return as well to this team. Once you get him back, they're in a really, really good, dangerous spot moving forward in a really tough NFC East. Not something I think we were expecting to say this year. Our next game, we look at a matchup here between the Los Angeles Chargers and the Arizona Cardinals. And Austin, you and I kind of just always shy away from picking Arizona. We don't really know what's going to happen with Kyler Murray. They also have a little bit less time to prepare for this game simply because they're playing on Monday night against the 49ers in week 11. So, they're kind of at a little bit of a strategic disadvantage and a travel disadvantage in terms of, one less day to prepare here. And the Chargers, you look at this team, they've been kind of playing better than a lot of people seem to think. The narrative around them is, oh, what a disappointing year. They're still above 500. They're still a team in the hunt for the playoffs right now. It's kind of easy for me to pick them here. I just feel a little bit more confident, especially with Justin Herbert under center. He's just the best quarterback in this game right now between him and even if Kyler Murray is, fully healthy, able to go and everything for Arizona. Awesome. Why do you like the Los Angeles Chargers here?
I like the Chargers because, them getting healthy is a big reason why. I know while we're recording here, the Mike Williams injury is definitely going to play a factor into this one. However, Keenan Allen being back, that's a big deal. He's a big time playmaker for this Chargers offense. They've had some injuries across the board and have had to rely on a lot of different guys that have been slightly unsung heroes. And as this team continues to get healthier, I think that they are definitely a force to be reckoned with. There's talent across the board. One of the more talented teams in the NFL, but once again, they've had some issues with some coaching adjustments. They've had some issues with injuries. I think they can kind of mask that a little bit and beat Arizona on the road.
Yeah, it's going to be a fun game to watch for sure. And as we transition into our next one now, we look at a matchup between the Las Vegas Raiders and the Seattle Seahawks. Raiders fans, we're going to see if it works 2 weeks in a row. Last week, I said, I'm not picking the Raiders again this year, and they won their first game since I said that. So we'll see. Maybe I'm jinxing them to 2-0 since I've said it, and maybe they can salvage their season. But I've been really liking Seattle at home this year. Seattle's been one of my sneaky picks pretty much every single week. Now take that with a grain of salt because I'm 10 games back of Austin, but I've just really liked them. At home, the 12s do really, I think, play a massive impact, not only on how the team plays, but I think on how the other team plays. I think that other teams go in and I think they struggle more. You see the obvious examples of, don't know the play call, or you have to take a timeout in the second quarter because you didn't get the play in on time, those kind of things. But there's also just the overall sheer volume factor of during plays, stuff happens. And I think it really gets into some players' heads that aren't accustomed to playing in that. So we'll see if that at all jeers the Raiders here this week. Austin, what do you like about Seattle in this one?
I like Seattle here. Like you had kind of alluded to, just playing at home is a big differentiating factor. And it's not only this year, but it's been historically under Pete Carroll. They've done a really nice job. His teams are always so well prepared when they're playing at home. They're able to run the football effectively. Geno Smith has been massively efficient for this team, not making a ton of big mistakes. And that's how you win football games. The Raiders are banged up once again. So without guys like Darren Waller in the lineup, it definitely is a game changer. I know they had just won here, but once again, I think Seattle is just so well disciplined and they play a great brand of football that's going to win you some games later on in the season. This is a pivotal time for Seattle. They're trying to win that division, and the Raiders don't have nearly as much to play for.
Devontae Adams has come on as of late. I think it's going to be another really fun matchup, Austin. We talked about it a few weeks ago about Tariq Woolen and how impactful he's been as a rookie. Well, this is another big test for him, and one that I actually trust him to come out and play pretty well in as well. Going into our next game now, we look at a matchup here between the Los Angeles Rams and the Kansas City Chiefs. One that at the beginning of the year, people would have circled this and said, oh boy, this is a game we have to have on. It's going to be so exciting. Two of the best teams in the NFL. Well, the Rams are kind of hovering around a top 5 pick that's going to convey to Detroit. And Kansas City here at this spot, they're still doing the same old Kansas City thing, which is winning a lot of football games. Andy Reid, Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce, that combination is going to produce good football. We talked a lot during the season and before the season that even without Tyreek Hill, this team's going to be fine. Everyone was hitting the panic button. Oh, don't bet on them to win the AFC West. Well, here we are at this point. They're in the driver's seat right now. And we see them continuing that here against Los Angeles at home against with the Arrowhead Stadium blowing up. There's a ton of fans in there. Obviously it's going to be a loud environment. What do you like about Kansas City here? Is home field a big factor here, or are the Rams just kind of a mess right now and the Chiefs take care of business handily?
Yeah, I think it's a combination of all those things. Kansas City's just they look good overall. They look good throughout the course of the season, but it's more about the Rams being a complete disaster. They can't run the football at all, and that's what they had really prided themselves in with their identity, was running the football and creating play action out of it. And that's been the MO for Sean McVay's offenses for many years now. And now that he hasn't been able to do it, they look pretty vulnerable. Their offensive line has been bad. Their running game has been atrocious. And when you look at the Rams here, I mean, with the Matt Stafford injury, we don't have any word on that officially on what's that going to be long-term. But I mean, if he doesn't play, they absolutely stand zero chance. And even if he does play, I don't have that much confidence in this, the defending Super Bowl champions.
Right. Obviously, Cooper Kupp and IR hurts their chances extremely in this game. And I think the Chiefs here just take care of business. Our next game now, we look at a matchup between the New Orleans Saints, who had that nice win that both you and I predicted over Los Angeles in week 11, and the San Francisco 49ers, who the Niners have one less day to prepare for this game as well, but they are at home. And I think for this example, I think they're just a more talented team, and that pass rush, I think, is going to be really consistent for them. They've just been playing good football all year long. I've really liked their offense after getting Christian McCaffrey, which I really want to ask you, Austin, with the Niners, how aggressive they've been, do you think it's going to pay off for them long-term with McCaffrey there, and just kind of also how this year is going to play out for them as well?
Yeah, I mean, I've been a big believer in the 49ers. I mean, ever since they acquired Christian McCaffrey, he adds a different element to this offense. And, whether people believe in Jimmy Garoppolo or not, he's been able to win some big time playoff games. Part of that is predicated on how good his team has played around him, but also he's had to make some big throws as well. Now, I know a lot of people are going to knock him, and I'm not the biggest Jimmy Garoppolo guy either. However, he knows how to win football games, and this team plays pretty well around him. At the end of the day, that is a good mix. They've made deep playoff runs before, and I think this year could be another rendition of it with a weaker NFC than we've seen in years past. I know people are going to bring up the Cowboys and Vikings and Eagles, but at the end of the day, it seems a little bit more open than it has been.
Right, I completely agree with that. I think the NFC, there's still a lot up for grabs right now, especially, the Eagles haven't looked as great as they have for most of the year, their last couple weeks. And, the Vikings didn't really seem to want to send a message of, hey, we're here, we belong. After a big win over Buffalo, they just didn't really cement that in everyone's eyes with how they played against Dallas. So San Francisco, they can still go out, get the job done, and they have the playmakers to do it for sure. Our next game now, we go into a matchup here between those Eagles that we talked about. They are hosting Green Bay here. And this is another really important game. If Green Bay wants to make up any ground right now, this is their chance to do it. They have to go out and win this week. They have to beat Philadelphia on the road, which is a really tough thing to do. And that's why I don't see it happening. It's hard to beat Philadelphia when they're playing in Philly. We give a lot of credit to the Seattle fans and, Denver fans and everywhere. There's a lot of really good fan bases. Philadelphia's got to be right at the top of it. They get a lot of hate, deservedly too. I'm not, vindicating Philly fans here. They do a lot of stupid stuff and say a lot of mean things, but they're loud and they do impact games, I think, when they're playing back in Philadelphia. So Austin, for the Eagles here, what is going to be important for them strategically to getting this one done?
I think stopping the run is the biggest thing you have to worry about with Green Bay, because if they're getting that run game going, definitely opens up the pass game. But if you're able to make them one-dimensional and making those receivers beat the corners one-on-one on the outside, which you have Bradbury Island, you have Darius Slay, covering these wideouts, it really kind of shrinks your playbook, to be completely honest with you. And with their additions of Ndamukong Suh and Linval Joseph as plug and play guys, I mean, they played a ton of snaps this past weekend against the Colts, and they look good. They look good for not playing for so long, which is kind of crazy. I mean, the Eagles just continue to get richer and richer. A lot of rotational defensive linemen that could be high impact players, especially late in games when your starters are tired, and then you have these guys coming in. It makes a big difference, in my opinion, when you have that kind of quality of depth, especially in that front seven there. But overall, the Eagles are, like you said, very tough to beat when they are at home, and Green Bay is going to have a very, very good game plan going into it.
Austin, as the utility sports wizard yourself, when it comes to, pick 'em and predictions, I want to know, Christian Watson, 5 touchdowns the last 2 games. How many does he score in this one against Philadelphia?
I'm going to go nil. I don't think he's going to put up a touchdown. I don't think so. Maybe I'll get clipped for this later, but I don't think he's actually going to score against Philly.
You guys heard it here first. Christian Watson will not smell pay dirt this week. Our pick'em wizard himself predicted that. Let's get into our Monday night game here now. And it's a matchup between Pittsburgh and those Indianapolis Colts you just referenced, Austin. They've been playing really hard under Jeff Saturday, nearly, and I mean really nearly, pulled out the win against Philadelphia on what was, I think, a pretty good game, honestly, watching that one. I really enjoyed that. Some costly turnovers in the fourth quarter by both teams. You thought, hey, the Colts have this one in the bag, and it just slipped away from them at the end. But I think there's a lot to like still about what we've seen. One thing is they've been giving Jonathan Taylor the ball, and he's looked pretty good running the football for Jeff Saturday. So there's a big positive there for that team. Obviously, Jeff Saturday probably not going to be their long-term head coach, but right now doing a pretty decent job as an interim, if I had to say. Austin, is this kind of one of those games where you're like, I don't really love either team, kind of love both teams here? I don't know. What are you thinking on this one?
Yeah, TJ Watt was almost single-handedly enough to make me pick Pittsburgh on the road. But like you said, they've been playing pretty, hard, and Jonathan Taylor heating up is one of those reasons why I would stay with Indianapolis here, just because he is a game-changing running back. He's looked really, really good since his return from injury. Looks like he's got that spring in his step like we were hoping to see at the start of the year. Obviously, the injuries, held him out of a lot of games. So his legs are pretty fresh at this point in the season. That's why you got to like him. when they are at home on a Monday night game. This is one of those games that you think, Mike Tomlin could have his Steelers, well prepared for, but at the end of the day, I think the Colts can get it done.
When the lights shine brightest, are you going to trust the rookie Kenny Pickett, or are you going to trust the many-time veteran Matt Ryan, who, he's been there, done that before? I think that's one of those things too that kind of builds into this game, and just take the veteran QB on a Monday night game. Feels a little bit safer, unless that veteran was Kirk Cousins, of course, because he's like 2-12 or whatever on primetime. Thank you guys so much for watching. Hopefully you guys did enjoy. If you did, make sure to leave a like, subscribe to the channel for more content like what you saw here today. Again, smash that like button. It really lets us know we're doing a good job here. Thanks again, and we'll catch you in the very next Utility Sports video.